Ramon Salcido was born on March 6, 1961 in Las Mochas, Sinaloa, Mexico, and was one of 7 siblings. Although he enjoyed going to school, his father's death in 1975 forced him to leave school at only 14 years old. He started working various jobs and helping his family financially. According to his mother, despite these challenges, Ramon had a supportive circle of friends and a good relationship with his family. However, Ramon, just like his late father, had a really bad temper. A few examples of his temper include him getting mad at his sister and destroying her bed, and hitting his brother in the face after he told Ramon to calm down during a fight with their mother. In 1979, when he was only 18 years old, he got married for the first time. Ramon married a young woman who was pregnant with another man's child. However, she left him for the child's biological father after giving birth. Ramon's relationship with his family was described as strained, as he left Mexico after threatening to kill them all. That same year, Ramon moved to California, where he met his second wife Deborah in Kern County. Deborah got pregnant with Ramon's child, and although their relationship eventually fell apart, they did not legally divorce. He ended up moving away from Deborah and the child. Ramon was not a present father, and he failed to provide financial support for their child. Ramon was concerned that Deborah's child was not biologically his. In the mid-1980s, Ramon got married for the 3rd time to Angela Richards. Angela, who had been homeschooled due to her family's beliefs about public schools, was raised in a strict Catholic environment and was taught traditional feminine roles. She rebelled by marrying Ramon, a Mexican man, and her family were not happy about her choice, and she started to become more independent during her marriage. Ramon treated Angela poorly, and he would stay out 4 to 5 nights a week in bars and wouldn't come home until 10 or 11 p.m. They had 3 daughters, Sofia, Carmina, and Teresa, whom Ramon appeared to love very much. Carmina was his favorite. The family lived in Sonoma County, and Ramon's first job there was at St. Francis Winery in Kenwood. His employer praised him for being a competent worker who didn't need much supervision. Ramon actively worked on improving his English language skills and was able to communicate with his co-workers very well. He was described as always well-groomed and friendly, and he had good relationships with his colleagues. People who knew him well described him as likable, and he appeared to love his daughters. He was known as a joker or a clown. In early 1987, Ramon began working at Grand Cru Vineyard, working on the bottling line under the supervision of Tracy Tuvey, who was the assistant winemaker. He was described as friendly, outgoing, well-dressed, and punctual. Several months after Ramon had started working at the vineyard, Kenneth Buddy got employed and took charge of the bottling line, and Kenneth became Ramon's primary supervisor. Ramon's use of sick leave was minimal in 1987, but steadily increased. His co-worker, David Hellman, whom he knew for 5 years, mentioned that Ramon resented Kenneth because he showed prejudice against Mexican workers. Ramon and David went to bars together where they often heavily drank. In 1987, David and Ramon started using cocaine together in small amounts, 1/4 to 1/2 gram amounts every 6 to 8 weeks. By 1988, Ramon began mixing cocaine with alcohol. According to David, Ramon was a habitual liar who exaggerated things and bragged about being better off financially than he actually was. In late 1988, Ramon and his wife Angela got a credit card and quickly reached the maximum limit of $3,000 and started racking up debt. Around the same time, Ramon made a purchase of a Trans Am, despite their financial difficulties. They struggled to make payments on both the credit card and the car, leading to Ramon giving up the car in early 1989. Ramon also drove a 1981 Buick Skylark, which he exchanged for a Ford LTD in May 1989. Ramon's attendance at work became increasingly erratic, prompting David to warn him that if he did not straighten up, he would be fired. Kenneth had informed Tracy that Ramon was a poor employee and that he needed to improve his performance. During this time, Ramon and his family lived at 201 Bain Street in Boys Hot Springs, renting a small 1-bedroom home within a duplex. Their home was approximately 7 miles from Grand Cru Vineyard. Angela's parents, Robert and Marian Louise Richards, lived in a rented house at 8393 Lakewood Avenue in Cotati, along with their 2 younger daughters. The two families lived 30 minutes away from one another. It was a Tuesday on April 11th, 1989. While Ramon was at work, he received legal documents related to child support from his second wife, Deborah. This was the second time he got served, and he discussed this with his supervisor, Kenneth. The next day, Ramon's wife, Angela, was speaking with her neighbor, Connie Breziel. Angela had told Connie that Ramon had been previously married, and Angela proceeded to laugh about it and jokingly mentioned that she should get an annulment. At one point, Angela told Connie that she wanted to leave her husband. On the evening of April 13, 1989, Connie saw Ramon loading boxes the size of wine cases into his vehicle before driving off. Earlier in the day, Ramon and Angela were driving back home, and during the ride they started arguing, which led to Ramon going to McNeely's bar in El Verano at 9 p.m. that night. At the bar, Ramon met Mark Ondrasik and sold him 2 cases of sparkling wine from his car. Michael Karate was also at the bar, and he recognized Ramon after seeing him at several other bars. Michael purchased 9 bottles of sparkling wine from Ramon's trunk around 11:30 p.m. Both men had cocaine on them and indulged in a small amount. At Ramon's suggestion, they headed to his place where they snorted more cocaine with Angela. 20 minutes later, Ramon safely drove Michael back to the bar, where he tried to get more cocaine. Michael and Ramon then snorted the rest of their cocaine, and Michael estimated that they had snorted approximately 1 gram of cocaine in total. Afterwards, Ramon invited Michael to join him at the Sonoma Mission Inn to socialize with a group of women. Ramon and his wife's home was just a few blocks away from the Sonoma Mission Inn. Before 2 a.m., Ramon went to his friend Mario Mata's home, where Mario and his wife were asleep in their bedroom. Despite reeking of alcohol, Ramon didn't seem extremely drunk, probably due to the cocaine, and he ended up convincing Mario to go to a party with him. Ramon mentioned that he would be leaving the area the next day and told Mario that his brother could move into his house. Ramon asked Mario for $50 to buy drugs, but Mario refused to give him the money. They initially went to McNeely's bar, but Mario soon asked Ramon to drive him back home. Ramon then returned to the bar at 2:15 a.m., where he was joined by Michael and another friend, Larry Mateo. They followed Ramon in a separate car to the Sonoma Mission Inn. Although Michael noticed that Ramon seemed good to drive, Michael admitted that he was messed up at that time and was not fully aware of Ramon's level of intoxication. Upon reaching the Sonoma Mission Inn, Ramon entered the lobby while Michael and Larry stayed in their vehicle. Around 2:50 a.m., Ramon spoke with the receptionist Leila Brooks softly and had trouble speaking English. However, Leila did not smell alcohol on him, nor did she believe he was drunk or under the influence of drugs. Ramon was asking about a reservation, which Leila couldn't find. A security guard, who was out of Ramon's sight, noticed the 2 other men waiting outside in their cars. The guard signaled to Leila to deny them a room. She then suggested to Ramon that he may have confused the hotel with the Sonoma Valley Inn and made a call on his behalf. Ramon spoke with someone at the other hotel for a few minutes, and as he exited, he spoke with the security guard. Ramon asked him about the nightly room rate, which was $200. Ramon said that the rate was too much. The security guard detected a slight scent of alcohol on him but found him easy to understand. Ramon then drove over to the other car where Michael and Larry were at, and he had a brief conversation with them before they drove off separately. Ramon estimated that throughout the night, he snorted approximately 3 grams of cocaine and drank 2 or 3 bottles of champagne. After returning home from the bar, he discovered that his wife was gone, and the children were alone at the home. He said that this is when he felt like he wanted to kill her. He was asked if he was drunk at that time, and Ramon said that he felt like someone else because he was so out of his mind. Additionally, Ramon was a very jealous man, and he thought Angela was cheating on him. Overwhelmed by emotions, he snorted more cocaine, and at 5 a.m., he got into his car with their children and decided to search for Angela. Early in the morning at 5:39 a.m., Angela withdrew $200 in cash from their shared checking account from the ATM at the Wells Fargo Bank located in downtown Sonoma, which was about 2.5 miles away from their home. Angela then left the bank on foot. At 6 a.m., after about an hour of Ramon looking for his wife, he started feeling extremely enraged towards Angela, and so he made the decision to take his own life along with his children's. He then drove to a quarry near the county dump. At the quarry, Ramon separately took each of his daughters to a spot near his parked car, cut their throats from behind, and disposed of their bodies in the creek. Sophia was 4 years old, Carmina was 3 years old, and Teresa was 1 year old. He then headed to his in-laws' home, which was 30 minutes away, hoping to find Angela there. At that time, Angela's parents, Robert and Marion Richards, along with her younger sisters Ruth and Marie, were at their home on Lakewood Avenue. Ramon saw Robert leave for work before 7 a.m. Robert was planning to head straight to New York later that evening without returning home. Ramon wanted to kill his mother-in-law Marion, along with his 2 sisters-in-law, as he found out that his eldest daughter was not his biological child, and they knew about it. After he was told that his wife was not at his in-laws' home, Ramon asked Marion for a screwdriver, walked with her to the garage, and struck her head once or twice with an automobile jack stand. He then went back inside the house where he saw Ruth. He grabbed a knife, then grabbed Ruth from behind and cut her throat. He then saw Marie looking for her mother. Afraid she would start asking questions, Ramon cut her throat as well. Ramon proceeded to go to the front door and saw Marion in the hallway. Ramon feared that Marion would contact the police, and to prevent this, he also cut her throat. After cutting his finger, he removed Marie's underwear to stop the bleeding. He then went into a bedroom where Robert Richards had a gun collection and ammunition, which he kept inside a closet. Subsequently, he took a .22 caliber Ruger automatic pistol and ammunition. He loaded the gun and accidentally fired a shot. With the loaded weapon, he left the Richards home with the intention of taking his own life and his wife's. According to Ramon, one of the reasons he wanted to kill Angela was that she had also not disclosed that their first child was not biologically his. He said that this made him a bit upset, but said that he decided that it would be all right. Later, a neighbor named Roy Curtis reported noticing the Richard family's Chihuahua behaving strangely outside the house during this time. The first red flag was that the dog was outside the home by himself. The dog was barking, shaking, all while looking at the Richards home. Roy knocked on the door, but no one had answered, although he did hear a man's voice inside which sounded like it was from a radio or TV. Around 7 a.m., another neighbor across the street reported hearing a woman's voice screaming, "No, no." That morning around 7:14, there was a 30.7-second phone call made to Ramon's home from the Richards residence. At 7:30, Mrs. Ledesma, Ramon's neighbor, was outside and noticed that Ramon's car was not parked outside their duplex, and she later went inside her home. When he got back home, Ramon waited for Angela to return, and when she did, she mentioned calling the police, which made him scared. According to him, in a moment of panic, he shot her twice in the head. As she raised her hands trying to defend herself, he shot her once more in the temple, hit her on the head with the gun, and then shot her again. Ramon also said that he planned to take his own life. Mrs. Ledesma reported that around 8 a.m., she heard the gunshots. She then heard Angela shout, "Watch out," before hearing another shot. Angela again shouted, "Watch out," and another shot was fired. Later, Ramon went to his car, and as he was drinking champagne, he made the decision to kill Tracy Tuvey and Kenneth Buddy. Around 8 a.m., Tracy left his home to go to work, which was a 5-minute commute. Ramon drove to work to kill Tracy, who usually arrived an hour earlier than Kenneth. When Tracy pulled up to the driveway of the winery, Ramon flashed his headlights, and Tracy pulled alongside him. Ramon then approached him and threatened him, telling him that he would kill him. After Tracy asked Ramon if this was about him potentially getting fired, Ramon replied, quote, "So you got that in mind already?" Ramon then fired at Tracy but couldn't remember how many shots he fired. Around 8:15 a.m., Ramon drove into the driveway of Kenneth's home, which was 2.4 miles away from the winery and 8 miles from Ramon's home. Kenneth walked up to Ramon's car, and Ramon backed his car to within 10 feet of Kenneth and asked him how he was doing. Kenneth asked Ramon, who appeared normal, quote, "What's going on, Ramon?" Ramon accused Kenneth of trying to take his job and said that he was going to kill him. Kenneth eventually noticed that Ramon had blood on his forearms. Ramon turned away briefly and, When he turned back toward Kenneth, he was holding a gun with his hand resting on the open window ledge of the car door. Kenneth heard the sound of popping and clicking coming from the gun, and Ramon shot at him, and Kenneth started running. Kenneth was struck by a bullet in the shoulder, causing him to fall to the ground, but he ended up surviving. Meanwhile, Kenneth's wife, Terry, saw Ramon driving away from their yard with the gun pointed towards her and heard a click. Ramon's eyes were open wide, and he had no expression on his face. Ramon then changed his mind and decided to go home without trying to shoot at Kenneth's wife. At 8:20 a.m., Tracy's body was found in his car on the gravel driveway to the vineyard. He had suffered 4 gunshot wounds, 3 to his head and 1 to his arm. The 2 bullets recovered from his head were .22 caliber. Later that day, the bodies of Marion and her 8-year-old daughter Marie were found in the hallway of the Richards home. Marie's nightgown was pulled over her waist, her underpants were around one ankle, and her legs were apart. The body had blood smears near the pelvis. A bloody knife was found near Marion's feet, and 2 boxes of .22 caliber bullets and a box of bandages with blood on it were nearby. Ruth, who was 12 years old, was found face down in the kitchen with her nightgown pulled above her waist, blood-stained underpants wrapped around 1 foot, and legs apart. There were bloody handprints on her body, specifically her buttock and thighs. Additionally, another box of .22 caliber long rifle bullets with Ramon's fingerprint and blood was found in the bedroom, while Marion's glasses and her pendant were discovered on the garage floor. According to the medical examiner, Marion suffered a blunt force injury to the back of the head strong enough to render her unconscious. Marion, Marie, and Ruth all passed away due to blood loss from cuts to their throats. Marion Louise Richards was 47 years old when she tragically passed away. At 8:26 a.m., there was a call made from Ramon's home to Las Mochas, Sinaloa, Mexico, where his mother lived, which lasted 1 minute and 40 seconds. Ramon confessed to what he did to his mother. However, he didn't tell her that he killed his children, and instead he told her that they were safe with a friend. He told his mother that he was going to kill himself as well. She requested that Ramon first visit her and his sister one last time. Shortly after, at around 8:50 a.m., Ramon's neighbor Connie saw him leave in his car, and he seemed to be in a hurry. By 9 a.m., Lieutenant Bollinger and Sergeant Brown of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department arrived at Ramon's home and discovered Angela's body in the hallway, along with 6 bullet casings in the kitchen and the hallway. Among Angela's belongings were an ATM receipt, childcare advertisement, and $200 in cash. Those were found in her clothing. She suffered 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to the head and 1 to the shoulder. The medical examiner removed a bullet from her head, which was a .22 caliber. Ramon intended to visit his mother, and around 9:24 a.m., an attempt was made to withdraw $140 from Ramon and Angela's joint account at Wells Fargo Bank in San Rafael. While at a gas station, Ramon noticed blood on his pants and changed into shorts. He then drove to a department store, and at around 10 a.m., he bought new clothes at the store in San Rafael using his credit card. He did not seem under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and he didn't seem to be in a hurry. He abandoned his car with the murder weapons inside and took a bus to San Francisco. In San Francisco, at around 12:18 p.m., he cashed 2 checks at the Wells Fargo Bank at the corner of Van Ness Avenue and California Street. One of the checks was made out to him by Mark Andresek after he purchased sparkling wine from him. He also withdrew cash from his checking account and traveled to Las Mochas by bus, which took several days. 3 days later, he arrived at his mother's home, seemingly in distress, and was crying. Ramon asked to see his grandmother and sister before turning himself in. In a subsequent letter to his mother, Ramon accepted responsibility for what he did, expressed doubts about his first daughter being biologically his, and commented that nothing had worked out for him with his first and second wives. On the day of the murders, Ramon's Ford LTD was discovered in a parking lot near the department store he purchased clothes from. The police found a bag, a credit card receipt for a pair of light-colored pants which were purchased by Ramon, and 3 notes which were written in Spanish. The first note expressed a wish for the arrests of Arturo and Richard because they were selling cocaine. The second note said, quote, "Your father loves you very much. We will see each other in God's other world." The third note said, quote, "Forgive me, God, but this law made me do it. My children and I could live better, but I was pushed into doing it. During their search of the Ford LTD, the police discovered a .22 caliber Sturm Ruger pistol with 1 round in the chamber and a blood-stained knife under the front passenger seat of the vehicle. Next to the knife were children's clothes also stained with blood, as well as a blanket, ammunition, and a half-filled bottle of sparkling wine. On April 15, 1989, at approximately noon, 2 quarry employees discovered the bodies of 3 young girls in the tall grass at the bottom of a 15-foot embankment in a field next to the parking lot at Stay Gulch Quarry, which also was used as a dump site. This was 6.6 miles away from Ramon's home and 13.5 miles from the Richards home. 2 of the girls were laying down, and 1 girl was sitting up facing them. The 3 young girls were identified as Ramon's children, Sophia, Teresa, and Carmina. Post-mortem genetic testing was done, and it was confirmed that Sophia was not Ramon's biological daughter. Sophia succumbed to blood loss caused by 3 large lateral cuts across her throat that penetrated her spine. It was determined that she may have survived for an undetermined period of time. She also had defensive wounds on her hands. Teresa also died from similar wounds. She succumbed from blood loss caused by 2 lateral cuts across her throat that also penetrated her spine. Carmina suffered a large lateral cut across the throat from one side of her jawbone to the other, exposing her voice box and partially detaching her tongue. She apparently remained sitting with her chin supported by her chest during a period of more than 30 hours prior to being found. She was so hungry she had eaten small pebbles during the 30-hour period. Her tongue could have closed her throat and suffocated her if she had laid down. She also had a defensive wound on her hand. Severely dehydrated, in shock, and on the brink of death, she was rushed to the emergency room in critical condition, where a team of 20 medical professionals attended to her. While being moved between beds in the hospital, she uttered the chilling words, "Daddy cut me." Carmina thankfully survived this horrible attack. These shocking crimes transpired over a span of about 3 hours. The knife and handgun, which were found in Ramon's car, were tested. It was determined that the knife could have caused the wounds suffered by Ramon's daughters. Ballistics analysis confirmed that the bullets recovered matched those fired from the Sturm Ruger pistol found in Ramon's car. An examination by a criminalist who tested the gun found a flaw in the handgun's magazine which caused the first round to hang up, which could be dealt with by hitting the bolt or by ejecting the first round. Unfired rounds were also discovered at the crime scenes. Furthermore, Robert Richards confirmed that the handgun used in the murders was similar to ones from his collection, which he stored in a bedroom closet with ammunition. FBI agent John Johnson testified that several days after the murder, while Ramon was still a fugitive, he interviewed St. Francis Winery employees, Oseguera Manzo and Biani Mario. They told him that at one point Ramon went over to Biani's home, and after a while, Biani felt like Ramon had overstayed his welcome, and Biani did not want to provide him with more food, beer, and cigarettes. This made Ramon mad, and he later told Oseguera that he had multiple automatic rifles and a pistol in his trunk to take care of Biani if he caused him problems in the future. Both men were concerned about their safety. Ramon was arrested on April 19, 1989, at a train station outside Las Mochas, Sinaloa, Mexico. Just moments after boarding a private airplane for his return to the United States, he confessed, stating, quote, "I was going to turn myself in. I made a mistake. I'm guilty." During the flight back to Sonoma County, he provided a detailed confession, admitting to the shootings and stabbings.
Are you remorseful of what you did?
Not really.
Although he stated that he felt like someone else because he was so out of his mind, and tried to blame his intoxication. During the trial, psychiatrist and clinical researcher Dr. Rhys Jones testified and shared insights into Ramon's behavior. He noted that deceiving a victim to change locations, such as lying to Marion, and murdering the children individually suggested premeditation rather than impulsiveness. Dr. Jones also stated that Ramon's ability to move between crime scenes reflected his attention, concentration, and planning, which is inconsistent with the mental impairment that would result from heavy drug usage. Additionally, during the trial, Professor Alex Zaragoza testified, stating that he believed that Ramon tended to inflate his own importance, blame others for his failures, has a poor sense of self, and has low self-esteem. When Ramon would return to his hometown, he would boast about his accomplishments in the U.S. to his family. He would also go to bars and would lie and portray his family in Mexico as more affluent and more accomplished than they actually were. The defense introduced various witnesses who had interacted with Ramon at various bars or restaurants, and they shared positive opinions about him, noting that he treated his wife well and had not been violent. During a conversation with a sheriff's deputy, Robert Richards stated that he could not understand the tragic murders, as Ramon liked his wife Marion, who supported her daughter's wish to marry him. The two families had also recently gathered on Easter Sunday and had a wonderful time before the horrific murders took place. Witnesses had testified that after the murders, Ramon acted as if his family was still alive. Ramon had no prior criminal record in Mexico. He stated that he had experienced various medical issues during his early years, such as a high fever in infancy, a head injury from a bicycle accident at age 10, and a severe electrical shock during adolescence. Clinical psychologist Dr. Francis Cronella stated that Ramon was intelligent and organized, which seemed inconsistent with brain damage. He was observed reading law books in the jail library and kept books on famous criminal cases in his cell. Ramon admitted to killing 7 individuals but claimed to have no recollection of it. Dr. Cronella examined the results of various tests conducted on Ramon, including a computerized axial tomography scan, electroencephalogram, magnetic resonance imaging, and neurological and personality testing. The results were generally normal. Additionally, a comprehensive neuropsychological assessment using the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale showed that Ramon possessed an above-average IQ with no signs of organic brain dysfunction. Dr. Cronella eventually diagnosed Ramon with a persistent and severe paranoid personality disorder. He noted that several factors leading up to the crimes, including Ramon's and Angela's arrests for welfare fraud in July 1988, their significant credit card debt, substance abuse, the prospect of losing his job at the same time he was required to assume child support payments, and his wife's increasing independence had a detrimental impact on Ramon's mental health. Furthermore, Dr. Cronella highlighted the stressful events just before the murders, such as Ramon being denied a hotel room and returning home to find his children unattended, as triggers for a psychotic episode that led to the criminal behavior on April 14, 1989. Neuropsychologist Dr. John Walker cast doubt over this theory, and he did not believe that Ramon suffered from psychosis, or that he suffered a psychotic episode during the time of the crimes. Dr. Jones pointed out that during this period, Ramon did not display catatonic stupor or excitement, hallucinations or illusions, psychotic delusions, incoherence, or extremely disorganized behavior. On October 30, 1990, the jury delivered its verdict, finding Ramon guilty of a series of serious offenses. These included 6 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder of Marie Ann Richards, and 2 counts of willful and deliberate attempted murder. The jury found true a multiple murder special circumstance allegation. Ramon acknowledged using a firearm in 3 of the murders and a knife in the others. Additionally, he admitted to inflicting great bodily injury. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of death on November 16, 1990. Ramon Salcido has been on death row in California's San Quentin State Prison for 33 years and 324 days as of the date of this recording. During the time of the murders, he was 28. He is now 63 years old. Thank you for watching.